Now, evolution of life forms a theory. Conventional religious literature tells us about the theory of special creation. This theory has three connotations. One, that all living organisms, species, or types that we see today were created as such. Two, that the diversity was always the same since creation and will be the same in the future also. Three, that Earth is about 4000 years old. All these ideas were strongly challenged during the 19th century based on observations made during a sea voyage in a sail ship called HMS Beagle around the world. Charles Darwin concluded that existing living forms share similarities to varying degrees not only among themselves but also with life forms that existed millions of years ago. Many such life forms do not exist anymore. So there had been extinctions of different life forms in the years gone by, just as new forms of life arose at different periods of history of Earth. There has been gradual evolution of life forms. Any population has built in Any population has built-in variation in characteristics. Those characteristics which enable some to survive better in natural conditions. Climate, food, physical factors, etc. would outbreed others that are less endowed to survive under such natural conditions. Another word used is fitness of the individual or population. The fitness, according to Darwin, refers ultimately and only to reproductive fitness. Hence, those who are better fit in an environment leave more progeny than others. These therefore will survive more and hence are selected by nature. He called it natural selection and implied it as a mechanism of evolution. Let us also remember that Alfred Wallace, a naturalist who worked in Malay Archipelago, had also come to similar conclusions that around the same time. In due course of time, apparently new types of organisms are recognizable. All the existing life forms share similarities and some share common ancestors. However, these ancestors were present at different periods in the history of Earth, epochs, periods, and eras. The geological history of Earth closely correlates with the biological history of Earth. A common permissible conclusion is that Earth is very old, not thousands of years, as was thought earlier, but millions of years old. So, what are the evidences for evolution? Evidence that evolution of life forms has indeed taken place on Earth has come from many quarters. Fossils are remains of hard parts of life forms found in rocks. Rocks form sediments, and a cross section of Earth's crust indicates the arrangement of sediments one over the other during the long history of Earth. Different aged rock sediments contain different fossils of different life forms who probably died during the formation of the particular sediment. Some of them appear similar to modern organisms. They represent extinct organisms, example dinosaurs. A study of fossils in different sedimentary layers indicates the geological period in which they existed. The study showed that life forms varied over time and certain life forms are restricted to certain geological time span. Hence, new forms of life have arisen at different times in the history of Earth. All this is called the paleontological evidence. Do you remember how the ages of the fossils are calculated? Do you recollect the method of radioactive dating and the principles behind the procedure? Now, embryological support for evolution was also proposed by Ernst Haeckel. based upon the observation of certain features during embryonic stage common to all vertebrates that are absent in adult. For example, the embryos of all the vertebrates, including humans, develop a row of vestigial gill slit just behind the head, but it is a functional organ only in fish and not found in any other adult vertebrates. However, this proposal was disapproved on careful study performed by Carl Ernst von Baer. He noted that embryos never pass through the adult stage of other animals. So, comparative anatomy and morphology shows similarities and differences among organisms of today and those that existed years ago. So, such similarities can be interpreted to understand whether common ancestors were shared or not. For example, whales, bat, cheetah, and humans. All mammals share similarities in the patterns of bones of forelimbs. Though these forelimbs perform different functions in these animals, they have similar anatomical structure. All of them have humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges in their forelimbs. Hence, in these animals, the same structure developed along different directions due to the adaptations to different needs. So, this is divergent evolution, and these structures are homologous. So, homology indicates common ancestry. Other examples are vertebrate hearts or brains. So, in plants, also the thorn and tendrils of Bougainvillea and Cucurbita represent homology. Homology is based on divergent evolution, whereas analogy refers to a situation where exactly opposite means wings of birds and of wings of butterfly and of birds look alike. They are not anatomically similar structures, though they perform similar functions. Hence, analogous structure are a result of convergent evolution, different structures evolving for the same function and hence having similarity. Other examples of analogy are the eye of the octopus and of mammals, or the flippers of penguins and dolphins. One can say that it is the similar habitat that has resulted in the selection of similar adaptive features in different groups of organisms, but toward the same function. Sweet potato is a root modification and potato is a stem modification, is another example of analogy. In the same line of argument, similarities in proteins and genes performing a given function among diverse organisms give clues to common ancestry. These biochemical similarities point to the same shared ancestry as structural similarities among diverse organisms. Man has bred selected plants and animals for agriculture, horticulture, sport, or security. Man has domesticated many wild animals and crops. So, this intensive breeding program has created breeds that differ from other breeds, example dogs, but still are of the same group. It is argued that if within hundreds of years man could create new breeds, would not nature have done the same over millions of years? Another interesting observation supporting evolution by natural selection comes from England. In a collection of moths made in 1850s, that is before industrialization set in, it was observed that there were more white-winged moths on trees than dark-winged or melanized moths. However, in the collection carried out from the same area, but after industrialization, that is in 1920, there were more dark-winged moths in the same area. That is, the proportion was reversed. So, the explanation put forth for this observation was that predators will spot a moth against a contrasting background. During post-industrialization period, the tree trunks became dark due to industrial smoke and soot. Under this condition, the white-winged moths did not survive due to predators. Dark-winged or metalliced moths survived. Before industrialization set in, thick growth of almost white-colored lichen covered the trees. In that background, the white-winged moth survived, but the dark-winged, dark-colored moth were picked out by predators. Do you know that lichens can be used as industrial pollution indicators? They will not grow in areas that are polluted. Hence, moths that were able to camouflage themselves, that is, hide in the background, survived. This understanding is supported by the fact that in areas where industrialization did not occur, example in rural areas, the count of melanic moths was low. This showed that in a mixed population, those that can better adapt survive an increasing population size. Remember that no variant is completely wiped out. Similarly, excess use of herbicides, pesticides, etc., has only resulted in the selection of resistant varieties in a much lesser time scale. This is also true for microbes against which we employ antibiotics or drugs against eukaryotic organisms or cells. Hence, resistant organisms or cells are appearing in a time scale of months or years and not centuries. So, these are examples of evolution by anthropogenic action. This also tells us that evolution is not a directed process in the sense of determinism. It is a stochastic process based on the chance events in nature and chance mutation in the organism.